Good evening, you brave souls, you. Welcome to the March 2020 edition of Periodic Tables. My name is Misha Angrist from the Duke Initiative for Science and Society. So we're excited to have Katie Cannon here to talk about tigers. And before she does that, I just want to tell you briefly about next month's event. First of all, it'll be at the end of the month on Tuesday, April 28th. And as I said to the speaker earlier today, yes, until I hear from the potent force of the CDC or the omnipotent force of Motorco Music Hall, we are assuming that Tuesday, April 28th is a go, and if not, you will hear from us via the Science and Society channels. So next month, I'm very excited to have my colleague Kieran Healy from the Duke Sociology Department, and his title is Honest Data Visualization. And I wish I could show you this hilarious picture of a hurricane cone that he sent. It will be up on the Motorco website very soon if it's not already. Data visualization has never been more popular, more powerful, or more potentially misleading. This talk will explore why some visualizations are better than others, why good ones are useful, and why honesty isn't something you can tell just by looking. So I suspect he might have something to say about coronavirus. Anyway, Kieran Healy, if you're not aware, is, if nothing else, and I've never actually met him, he is a wonderful Twitter follow and full of snark and acidic wit. Okay, so as I said, we're excited to have Katie Cannon here. She has been the education director at Carolina Tiger Rescue since 2015, and it's our good fortune that she left a job teaching in Raleigh to become the Carolina Tiger evangelist that she is, and she is here to talk to us about petting tabbies, not tigers.
So I don't stand still. It's really hard for me, so sorry. My name's Katie. I'm the education director at Carolina Tiger Rescue, and I am going to talk about why you should only pet tabbies, not tigers. But first I figured I would give you a little history about the Tiger Rescue. Has anybody not either heard of us or been there? I should have made that a two-part question. Has anybody not heard of us? Fantastic. Okay, this is for you. So the Tiger Rescue we were established just over 45 years ago, and the idea by our founder, Dr. Michael Blyman, was to breed keystone species that are so vital to the ecosystem that without it, the ecosystem falls apart. And then he passed away, late 90s, early 2000s. We decided, yeah, the breeding's okay. But we're going to let the big facilities do that, like the zoos, that are abiding by the species survival plans and population management plans. And we're going to solely turn to rescuing. We're getting lots of calls for rescues. So we changed our name from Carnivore Preservation Trust, which was very confusing to everybody. They thought we had money because it sounded like we were a bank. We're a nonprofit. There's no money. It's fine. I mean, we do okay. But and then to change it to what we really do, which is rescue tigers, and most people say, but tigers are in Asia. There are, yes. There's also tigers here. One of the big questions I get whenever I go out to do booths, and I think my coworkers who I've stacked the audience with would agree is did you bring a tiger? Did you bring a tiger? Did you bring a tiger? I did bring a tiger this time. But what I really want to focus on is why this one's okay and the other ones aren't to pet. So you will have your opportunity to pet this tiger if you would like. So you're not sure it's on? That would be awkward. Now it's on. Okay. Third button. Perfect. Oh, check that out. It worked. So we all know what a tiger is. It's the largest of the cat species. There were once 9 subspecies. There are now 6, 5 in the wild, and 1 that's considered functionally extinct, meaning it's not found in the wild. The 3 subspecies that are extinct are the Caspian Javan and another one, and I'll come up with it in a minute. Bali. See, Bali. And tigers are known throughout the world as these massive predators who know what to do and can hide among snow, of all things, and can hide within the reeds and are one of the biggest predators, the land mammals, besides the polar bear and the grizzly bear. So we all know that, right? And then we've all seen situations like this. Cub petting. Has anybody heard of cub petting? No? Yes? No? Yes? Okay. If you have not heard of cub petting, let me raise your hand. Excellent. So, cub petting is exactly as it sounds, where you get to pay money to pet cubs, right? And what these facilities will do is they go, well, tigers are endangered. So we should be breeding these tigers, and while they're young, we should be able to pet them. Because why not, right? So when a lot of people say tigers, of course, their first thought is this guy. My first thought is this guy. So this is Capriccio. Capriccio is our heaviest tiger at Carolina Tiger Rescue. He weighs 489 pounds, right? He's a big boy. Capriccio was bred to be taken from his mother so he could be petted. Same tiger. He's now 10 years old. And what we see with him 10 years later is this. Does anybody see something that doesn't quite look right? Anybody besides my mother? Yes. Yeah, his back leg. So one thing to know about tigers is they're born at 2 to 3 pounds, so they can actually fit in the palm of your hand. They have a very short gestation period because mama tiger, if she's not hunting, she's not going to survive, right? And she'll have a litter of 3 to 4, maybe 5 cubs, and they've got to be tiny because she's got to be able to hunt all through her pregnancy. And she gives birth to these blind and helpless and deaf little babies, and 2 to 3 pounds at birth, and in just over 2 years, they're full grown. So they grow really fast, really quickly. Now, it takes us 18 plus years to be fully grown. It takes our brain 25 years to fully form. So they say don't make any rash decisions before then, right? Before your frontal lobe is all formed. But these guys have to be ready to go by the time they're over 2 years old, because mama's going to say, I'm done feeding you. You got to go, right? So they grow really fast, really quickly. And if they're not given the proper nutrients at the proper time, they're going to grow really fast and nice and big, but not nice and strong. So Capriccio has metabolic bone disease. And what has happened is, in over 2 years, he's grown from 2 to 3 pounds at birth, taken from his mother. Mom couldn't give him the proper nutrients at the proper time. And so he grew really big, but not really strong. And so what he's got in his back knee there are torn ligaments. And that's a result of him being taken away as a cub and allowed for people to pass him around. He's not getting proper nutrients from mom. And then he grows big, and his body can't handle all that weight. So the question is, what do we do? Well, that's a good question. Currently, we're looking into different options for him, which could include stem cell therapy at some point, but also some physical therapy where we'll have him walk in a pool. But then he's got to go the other way to strengthen all his legs. But the big thing is one thing we had thought about was going ahead and amputating that leg. Problem is, He's got arthritis in both those knees. So if you remove that back right leg, you've got another leg that isn't going to be able to support him. So here's a 10-year-old tiger who, in the wild, they live 8 to 10 years. In captivity, our oldest tigers right now are 21. I know, it's shocking. But at 10 years old, we're looking at him and going, we want to give you the best quality of life as long as possible, and how do we do that for you? This all happened because somebody said, I don't want him to be with his mom, I want to take pictures with him. We feel like that's a huge problem. All right, then you have this guy. Do your oohs and ahs about white tigers. I'm going to ruin it for you really quickly. Everybody got their good luck? You ready to be heartbroken? Does anybody know anything about white tigers? Aren't they controversial? Well, saber doesn't have any major controversial thoughts, luckily, but yeah. So the issue is white tigers are all inbred. So any white tiger you've ever seen was originally from a white tiger that was captured back in the 1950s named Mohan. And Mohan, these hunters were out and they saw this little white tiger cub in India and they go, oh, we got to have him. Because what do people love? People love oddities. They love things that look different. And a white tiger amongst orange tigers is just fantastic, right? So they brought Mohan into captivity, and when he was of breeding age, they said, we got to have more, because Mohan's not going to live forever. And they decided, well, we got to breed him. They bred Mohan with an orange tiger, got a litter of orange cubs. They bred Mohan with a different orange tiger, they got a litter of orange cubs. And then they go, wait a minute, that's a recessive gene. So they took Mohan and bred Mohan with one of his daughters. Then they started to pick up that white tiger gene. So in the wild, white tigers can be born. It's only amongst the Bengal subspecies. 1 in every 10,000 to 15,000 births of Bengal subspecies will yield a white tiger cub. The catch is there's only about 1,200 Bengal tigers left in the wild. So the odds of one being born, pretty well non-existent. If you come out to Carolina Tiger Rescue and get a glimpse of saber, you'll also see why they're not going to survive to adulthood. Bengal tigers live in the rainforests and in India, and it doesn't snow there. He stands out like a sore thumb. So when you're breeding, when those facilities that are breeding white tigers in captivity, what they're doing is they're inbreeding those tigers. Saber is relative to that white tiger. He's relative to our previous white tiger who we had, his name was Jellybean. And what happens is when they're breeding for white tigers, 1 in every 30 will be a quote-unquote show quality white tiger. That means that they are good enough to be on that Las Vegas stage, or good enough, beautiful enough to be in the movies. Saber was born he was bred for a Las Vegas magician. We don't know exactly why he was eventually sent to the facility that we rescued him from. But we did find him in a YouTube video as a cub. This is Saber as a baby. One thing to notice is, one, he's on a chain. So this video with this magician, who would be very offended that I called him a magician, because he would say he's an animal illusionist, which is why I call him a magician. He was walking him around on a leash in what looked like his backyard, and he was letting him play in the pool, and that's totally fine. And at one point, he's chewing on a chlorine dispenser, and that's probably not super cool. But one thing that we noticed when we found this video is what we know about Saber today is his teeth were filed down. So tigers have, like we have, different teeth that are meant for different things. So if you guys notice where those big canines should be, he doesn't have them. His teeth were filed down to the gum line. And if you notice as well, there's two black dots in the middle, or there's a black dot in the middle of each one. That's where the nerve would be. And we were able to tell from the video, his teeth were already filed down at this point. So the question is, well, why would somebody remove his teeth? Well, he's a lot safer to handle, right? Has anybody ever had a kitten in their house? Yeah, they like to play, right? Puppies too. They like to play with their teeth and their claws. Those kittens do. Yeah. So imagine, my youngest cat is now 2, and I could live at Carolina Tiger Rescue easily. But she has, talons. She has those claws, and she has those teeth, and she plays with her mouth, and I would come in with scratches on me because that's what she does. Then you have a 60-pound tiger. And if you are going to take pictures with this tiger, and you're bitten or scratched, are you going to go tell everybody it was a good idea? No, of course not. You're going to tell everybody it's a terrible idea. So people will alter these cubs so that you don't go away bitten or scratched by them, and you think it's one of the best experiences you've ever had, and you can check that off your bucket list. But then they grow up. Another thing to note about Saber before I move on is, y'all notice his eyes? So white tigers are not albino. They are, albino would mean that he wouldn't have any stripes and lacking all pigment, and his eyes would be red instead of blue. So all white tigers are blue-eyed. The majority of them, if not all of them, are cross-eyed. That is, again, a massive problem and why people will get rid of them. They don't have those dark stripes. And because of all that inbreeding, they'll be born with lots of different birth defects, including, scoliosis and epilepsy and blindness or deafness. Turpentine Creek, one of our sister sanctuaries, had a tiger named Kenny. And if you look up Kenny, he had massive facial deformities because of all the inbreeding. Because we as humans have decided that's what we want. And that's okay. But the thing to remember is he's living, and he has a personality, and he's a being, and he deserves that respect. So when we rescued him, actually Capriccio and Saber, part of our largest rescue to date in 2016, from a facility in Colorado that were speed breeding. And so and I'll get into a little bit more of the what happens with these cubs, because there's more, unfortunately. But this facility said, oh, we're not breeding these cubs, or we're not breeding these tigers. They had over 60 tigers, and cubs were being born during this rescue, and we're like, yeah, we can't really believe you. But this guy in Colorado had 110 animals on 4 acres of land. To keep that into perspective, we have about 50 animals, and we're currently using 55 of our 67 acres of land. 110 animals on 4 acres of land. That's a lot of animals, not a lot of space. Over 60 tigers. They had bears that had to be rehomed. When they decided that they were going to close down, they luckily worked with sanctuaries, Turpentine Creek again. They purchased the land, and part of being the only federally accredited and GFAS accredited Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries Wildcat Sanctuary in North Carolina means we don't pay money for these animals. What we want to make sure is that ends. What we don't want is to give him money for those animals and then him go, you know what, 65 tigers was too many. I'm going to take that money you gave me, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm just going to get 10. Because then we're part of the problem instead of part of the solution. So no money is ever exchanged for our animals when we rescue them. So when we got him, Saber, we noticed that his teeth were filed down. He's also declawed. When you're declawing a cat, they actually walk on the tips of their toes, removing that part of their foot, which changes their whole gait. It's a lot different in your house cat typically than it is when you're talking about 330 pounds. So we knew that we were going to have to do something about those teeth. So Saber got some root canals. So we were fortunate enough, and you know, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and what we decide when we take these animals in is they're going to get the best care possible. And what is amazing is we have some pretty awesome other nonprofits who step up and help us out. This is Peter Emily, International Dentistry. This is a group of dentists, human and animal dentists, who go all over the world to help out animals who need help. And they came in, they spent 2 full days with us. The tiger that Saber was living with at the time, Shenandoah, who has unfortunately since passed away, also had her canines filed down. So Saber, Shenandoah, one of our lions, and another of our tigers got to go to the dentist. And we sedated them, we brought them in, and then we had human and animal dentists working on them, all doing the things all at the same time. It was an incredibly amazing, very exhausting 2 days, but well worth it, because we know now that Saber doesn't have to suffer like that anymore because somebody said, I want to take my picture with him. All right, so that was 2 tigers. Surely it's not like that for everybody. If you Google cub petting, this is what you're going to find. This tiger should be with his mom. And instead, somebody's got his hands wrapped around his head so that they can get the perfect picture. And the other thing to note is all the people that are around him. You also will find images like this. Do you guys notice on the right-hand side what's waving in front of that tiger cub's face? Like a whip. And then there's another tiger cub up ahead, and there's definitely kids in that picture. And it's also people can say, I checked that off my bucket list. And then you got this guy on the right. This guy on the right here, nope. So sorry. My right, your left. This is part of a video that was being shot by undercover people who are trying to end this and show people what it's like. And this tiger, all he wanted to do was go to sleep. And they kept waking him up. And all he wanted to do was go to sleep. And a lot of times what they'll do with these guys is they'll drug them. And as they get bigger, they'll feed them less to keep them smaller so that they can be cub petted for longer. So this is a really cool graphic that we have and made. Which just kind of highlights all the things we've talked about. So again, these guys are taken from their moms at birth. They are it is recommended, quote unquote recommended, by the USDA that they only be used for cub petting between the ages of 8 weeks and 12 weeks. So they're only making money for these facilities for 4 weeks of their life. And then what? And we know of several facilities that always have cubs. You can go at any time of the year and pet these guys. So what does that mean? It means they're constantly breeding. So mom is always having babies taken away so that she can be bred again. So she's either always pregnant, giving birth, or being bred. These guys are often declawed and defanged, as we saw with Saber. And if that wasn't bad enough, only the select few are going to end up in sanctuaries like us. Because once they become too old to be cub petted, instead of making money, they become a liability. It costs us $80,000 a year to feed our animals. So if a facility is constantly breeding their cubs, they're not going to want to constantly feed those cubs when they're too big. Right? So they'll often sell them into the pet trade, sell them into the parts trade. A dead tiger will often yield $50,000 to $60,000 on the black market, or they're killed. These guys can make upwards of $30,000 in a week. So why wouldn't they do it? Now that I've totally brought it down, what questions do you guys have? Oh, I'm sorry. I so wanted to bring this up real quick. Sorry. So When you're going out and you're deciding, what am I going to do with my money? Where am I going to spend it? One thing that we ask is that you look into each facility. If it looks like they're not actually saying it on their website, they don't want you to know. If you go to these places and you say, hey, what happens to this cub when it grows up? Oh, I've got the sanctuary down the road. Do they? Why would they? Why would they keep those tigers unless it's to breed? And then they're going to have a surplus of tigers that they have to feed. The other thing that we ask is that you practice safe selfies. And our education assistant came up with a fantastic idea. Well done, Rosemary. And what we have tonight, that she and our curator have made over the last couple days, is a safe selfie station where we ask that if you want to get your picture taken with a tiger, this is the way to do it. This is how you take pictures with tigers, because the big guys, they don't like it, and it's not safe for them. Such a bummer. I'm sorry. What questions do you guys have? Yes?
So these facilities, where are they? Are they here in the States?
Where are these facilities? Yeah, they're here. So I figured that question was going to come up. So I put this slide next, easy access. So North Carolina is one of 4 states where there's no laws against owning a non-native species. Awesome, right? So if we can't even regulate whether or not you can own a tiger, places aren't going to be regulated on whether or not you can take pictures with them. The low estimate, we were talking earlier, the low estimate of tigers in the United States is about 5,000. The high estimate's 10, with 96% of them being in the hands of private owners, roadside zoos, and the entertainment industry. So we get this question a lot of but where are they? Well, that is a great question. I have no idea. And people say, but you can't hide a tiger. Yeah, you can. A few years ago, we were speaking at dinner, and there was a gentleman who had a tiger in his apartment in Harlem. And the best part of that story is, one, the tigers survived. They sedated him and got him out once people realized, oh, there's a tiger in there. But the other part of this story that I enjoy, only because nobody got hurt, was there was a nursing home across the street. And the residents of that nursing home would sit on the sidewalk, and they would say, you know, there's a tiger up there. And they were like, no, there's not. Sure enough, there is. If you Google tiger in Harlem, there's a police officer who's rappelling down off the roof, and as he gets to the window where the tiger is lunging out the window, roaring, and the police officer is there going, oh, yep, sure enough, there's a tiger there. So they can be hidden. These, you know, we certainly have tigers who have a lot to say. We have one named India who talks all the time, but we have other tigers who are pretty quiet. These guys are, you know, people will put them in cages that are way too small for them, and so that they can be hidden, unfortunately. If you want me to really hit home with that point, this is Raja and Kayla. Raja and Kayla were found on the side of the road outside of Charlotte, North Carolina when they were 6 months old. Yeah. We have no idea how they got there. What did they weigh at the time? About 66 pounds each. So remember, 2 to 3 pounds at birth, 6 months old, over 60 pounds. So the way this went down was there was an off-duty police officer who found a woman on this, had pulled over on the side of the road, and he gets out and says, "Ma'am, can I help you?" And she said, "Yeah, there's 2 tiger cubs up there." And sure enough, there were. So the next thing he did, saved their lives. He stopped traffic both ways, and he said, you know, can't come near them, because had anybody been bitten or scratched by them, they would have likely been euthanized on the spot. And then, being the smart guy he did, he called 911. Because what do you do when there's trouble? You call 911. And we have the 911 call at work, and it's pretty cool. In that that dispatcher was having a really interesting day. And she goes, 911, what's your emergency? And he said, oh, this is my name, and this is my badge number. And there's a bit of a pause, because how do you tell somebody there's tiger cubs on the side of the road? And then he starts to speak a little faster, knowing he's got to get it out. And he says, there's 2 tiger cubs on the side of the road. And he gets it out, and then it's just silent for a moment. And the woman goes, do what? He says, I know it sounds ridiculous, but there's 2 tiger cubs. I need you to send animal control out. She says, sir, this is 911. This is for emergencies. He said, I know. She finally says, it's too early on a Saturday morning for this. So they send animal control out. Raja Raja's the one on your left in this picture, on your right on that picture. And Raja was sunning himself in the middle of a lane, putting him in one county. And half a mile up, Kayla was on the other side of the road, putting her in a different county. So 2 different animal controls had to come out and pick them up. And during all this time, they're calling the North Carolina Zoo, and the zoo says, we don't take tigers. The zoo doesn't take tigers for a couple reasons. One is typically zoos won't take rescues. Rescues come with behavior problems, and they come with medical problems at times. The other thing is we often get the question of, what kind of tigers do you have? Our answer is orange. Except saber, of course. But they're orange. We don't know their lineage. We don't know what their background is. They're mutts is another thing that we'll say that they are. They're mutts. And zoos are they were established, or they have established breeding programs for them. So taking our tigers in, one, they don't fit at the North Carolina Zoo because there's Africa and North America, and tigers, of course, come from Asia. But the other issue is, they're in the business of breeding, so they can't breed these guys. We don't know what their background is, and so they said, "What? There's this place in Pittsburgh." The zoo actually held on to we called them the cubs. Long after they were cubs, they held on to them for a couple months, spayed her, neutered him, and then we got them when they were about 8 months old. Kayla in the back there has since passed away, but Raja will be 16 in July. So that was a very long answer to your question. I am so sorry. Just went right off. Yes? What are the barriers in North Carolina to having these laws? Yeah. 4. Yeah, 4. South Carolina passed theirs last year, or 2 years ago now. So part of, too far. So part of it is a lot of laws are reactive. The gentleman in the back is actually from Ohio, and he grew up near Zanesville, Ohio. That we were chatting about that earlier. And Ohio used to be an orange state up there until there was an incident in 2011 in Zanesville where this gentleman had a menagerie, if you will, in his backyard. And that menagerie consisted of 56 wild animals. And then one late afternoon in October of 2011, he cut their cages, and then he ended his life. And a lot of people didn't even know that he had these animals until they were running loose in rural Ohio. I've read several articles from this time, and there was a woman living next door. It was rural, so he had a bunch of land, living next door, and she was elderly, and her son was going out to get the horses to bring him into the barn, and as he did that, he noticed that the horse that he was trying to bring in was super spooked, and that's because there was a lioness on the other side of the fence. So he quietly and quickly pulls the horse into the barn and closes the door, and his mother couldn't figure out why he wasn't coming back in. And luckily, No humans were hurt, but all 49 of the 56 animals that got out that day were euthanized. And so, again, long answer to your question, but part of it is something bad has to happen first, it seems like. Our laws are very reactive. It wasn't illegal in Wake County until a man's 3-year-old son was mauled by his pet tiger, leaving him with permanent brain damage and blind in both eyes. And then Wake County said, oh yeah, over in Apex, yeah. And then Wake County said, oh, that's probably not okay. I can't tell you specifically what the big hindrance is. We tried to work with some legislators when I first started in 2015, and part of what seemed to stall it at that point was we were working with the Humane Society, and farmers don't take kindly to the Humane Society. People also don't like to be told what to do with their property. That's what they can do. So it's left up in North Carolina, it's left up to the counties. There's 100 counties. About 50 of our counties have laws either preventing it, prohibiting it, or requiring permits. And a permit could be you pay $5 and we'll let you keep your animal. We have a serval named Zoe who serval is a wild cat from Africa, and we were called in once she was picked up after her owners were served warrants on other charges, and they said, so do you have a permit for her? And they said no. And they said, do you want to get one? And they're like, no. She was at the time in the garage in a crate, standing in her own feces. She had become too much to handle. Animal control took her in until we could get there, and they fed her corn on the cob, sardines, and I think spinach. The thing to know about cats is they're obligate carnivores. They have to eat meat. And our curator who went to go get her, they put chicken in the crate they were going to bring her back to the rescue in, and she walked right in going, oh, thank goodness. But it also brings up the point of most of the time people don't understand what it takes to care for these animals. Here was animal control. This was a cat. Why would you give it corn on the cob? And I guess they had looked it up, and that's what they were supposed to feed it. And we're like, no, that's not what you feed it. So what we're trying to do is through education help people understand. I think most of the time people just don't even know that it's legal here, or that it's a problem. You know, we can't begin to shame China on their tiger farms because they at least know how many tigers are on their tiger farms. We can't tell you what the number of tigers in the United States is. And so what we take into, or what we need to do at the rescue is what we feel is a high priority is the education behind it. For people to understand, because we feel like once they have that information, they go, what? I'm sorry, it's legal? I'm not okay with that. And hopefully we'll take action with that. Yes?
So, my guess is the two cubs by the side of the road story is unusual. Is there a sort of typical way that your animals come to you? Is it usually people just are in over their head, or it's law enforcement?
So the question was the Raja and Kayla who were found on the side of the road, that's not typical of our rescues. So what is the typical? Yes, there are typical ways that we get our animals. One thing I will say to the not typical, last year in Texas, there were these two people who were going to smoke pot in a garage and found a tiger in the garage. Previously, that tiger is now in a safe place. The year before that, there was a tiger that was dropped off at the border of Mexico and I think Texas in a duffel bag that had been sedated. And luckily, that tiger is also safe. So while it's not typical, it's also not unheard of. But how do we typically get our animals? We are seeing a lot of facilities like this roadside zoo in Colorado closing down and rehoming animals. We've certainly had animals that were confiscated from roadside zoos that were closed down due to violations with their USDA. We also have had a influx of servals recently. We have gotten 8 servals since November. I should say 7 came from the same place. In British Columbia, where they were being bred in somebody's backyard in RVs, where they had no natural light and no natural ventilation. We just rescued another serval last week who was living in an apartment in Yonkers, New York. So it's a wide variety of where we get our guys from, and we never know when that rescue is coming. We didn't have a whole lot of notice, I don't think, with this last serval. We had lots of notice with the 7 because they were coming from British Columbia. And the British Columbia, that was a court case where they were confiscated, whereas the one in Yonkers, they decided they had actually been looking for about 6 months for a home for this animal, knowing that they could no longer care for her. And they had inherited her from somebody else. And everywhere that they had asked said, we're going to euthanize her. So they did right by her by waiting and finding an appropriate place for her. But unfortunately, a lot of these animals don't have such a positive outcome. Her name is Mama, and she's real cute. But she's a little chunky, and that's okay. She was living in an apartment with the Yonkers with 6 other cats? How many? 4? Oh, I was way off, sorry. With 4 other cats of the house cat variety. Yeah, was that your question of what kind? So one was a hybrid, but the rest were house cats. And yeah, we got a picture of her on the bed with all the other cats. But she's doing great. She soon will. She's in quarantine right now, and she soon will know a life of luxury at Caroline's Tiger Rescue, where the humans feed her the food, proper diet, and she can hiss at whoever she wants whenever she wants. Yes?
So I understand that your volunteer program, y'all require a great deal of commitment and hours.
We do.
Can you help us understand that? I've been always wanting to know about that.
Like why or what it takes?
No, like the why behind this is what you have to commit to, which I don't disagree with.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, wait. Sure. So we have a huge volunteer base. We have a staff of about 21-ish. Yes, my boss says yes, 21. 21 staff members. Most of those are full-time. We have 3 full-time keepers. And then we have our program assistant who is half education, half volunteer, and half keeper. I know, that math doesn't work. Coming from the education director, it's fine. But we wouldn't be able to do what we do without our volunteers. We have almost 200, if not 200 volunteers now, and they help in a variety of ways. So they help with animal care, which is our highest commitment. We require 4 hours a week. And the reason behind that, and we want you to, so we've changed things just a little. You can be a long-term one or a seasonal one. We know that kids, I feel like a kid. We know that college students are here for, the school year and then leave in the summer, or some come back in the summer and leave for the school year. The main thing is we want, through our volunteer program, we want to also educate you as to what the big problem is so that you can help be a voice for us. I started as a tour guide, and I was required to do 2 tours a month. And it's a lot of information to get a hold of and a lot of information to understand. And our keepers, especially with our animal care, our keepers work really hard to make sure that everybody's safe. Safety is our huge priority at Caroline's Tiger Rescue. We know what we have. We know how dangerous they are, and safety is our number 1 priority. We're not going to put anybody at risk, and we're not going to put our animals at risk because they didn't ask for this. And so for our keepers to spend the time to safely train our volunteers how to change waters and how to feed and how to, I don't even know all the things they do. What? Clean enrichment. Thank you. One of our keepers is up there. That's why I brought them. it requires a great deal of time and effort on their part, and that allows us to continue to give our animals the best care possible. The 3 keepers could definitely get through daily stuff without their volunteers, but our animals get the highest and the best life possible because of our volunteers and being able to give enrichment daily and take care of things that need to be taken care of very quickly with the animals at the forefront of everything that we do. Did that answer your question?
It does. Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, of course.
Do you have any thoughts on the South African financier Dean Schneider, who has started a wild cat rescue in Africa?
No, but I'll look it up.
Isn't it like Mataba, I think it is?
No, that's not what it's called. No, I heard the difference, but I'm not okay with it.
It's something. Yeah, he's a big, I guess, viral videos promoter.
Uh-huh.
Very easy to find.
I will look him up.
Dying to know what y'all who do this for real think of people like that.
All right. Well, I don't know anything about them. We know of other places that that promote education by taking selfies with tigers and lions and swimming with them and saying that this is okay. There's a gentleman who lives in Africa who, anyway, he says they're not pets as he walks with the lions. And so you're giving mixed messages. We have no mixed messages at Carolina Tiger Rescue. Your hands should never be on these animals. For the first time in my life, I'm speechless. Wow. Dean Schneider. All right, well, I know what I'm doing tomorrow. You got it? You got it? All right. Email that to me. I'll work on it tomorrow. Yeah, I feel pretty confident because I'm on the clock. My go-to is we have very different values. Yeah, come find me when I'm not wearing this shirt and I have a beer in my hand and we can talk otherwise. And my name's not Katie at that point. Yes?
Yeah, so thank you to all your work. I really appreciate it. So obviously, like the name Tiger is in the name of the organization, but as you've been alluding to, there's all these other big cats that you all are caring for.
Yes.
Can you maybe spend a little more time going into how that's evolved over time? Are there, and you kind of even alluded to it, like this influx of circles, but are there trends of like what sort of big cats you're seeing, or is it just kind of or is there, are there, how has that been changing over time? I guess?
Yeah, so my boss earlier was like, don't ask me any questions. Don't refer to me. So I will say what we have seen a lot more of is less of an influx on private ownership of big guys and more of small guys. Servals are small cats from Africa. We jokingly say now that we got 8 new ones of like, should we change our name? Is that what we need to do? Carolina Serval Rescue. It doesn't quite have the ring to it, so probably not. But yeah, what we're seeing is more of an influx of animals from facilities. It's kind of luck of the draw in that case of what they have and what needs to be rehomed. We work within the Big Cat Sanctuary Alliance, which is sister sanctuaries all over the country. And when a call comes in, it kind of goes through, unless it comes directly to us, it kind of goes through everybody and who can take what and who's closer. What we don't want to do, cats, if you have or have been around cats, you know that they stress easily. If you don't feed them at the same time every single day, the world is ending. We never feed our guys at the same time every day, and they're just sort of used to that. So what we don't want to do is add unnecessary stress to that animal. So if there is a place, take Colorado, the problem was there was 110 animals. Had they had 4 or 5, they likely would have gone to a closer sanctuary, but there was 110 that needed to be rehomed, so they had to go everywhere. And it's also a matter of what do we have room for. We're not going to continually take in animals if we can't take care of them for the rest of their lives. We are committed to the 50 that we have, and that may mean, next week if we get a call for 10 tigers, we're not going to take, well, I won't speak, can I speak for you? We're not going to take 10 tigers probably. Not at once. And that may mean that we take a couple and get them through quarantine and make sure we have enclosures, but we're not going to take animals that we can't care for the rest of their lives. I don't know that I actually answered your question, but okay. Yeah.
Have you noticed as trends in social media have gone a certain direction? Like, I notice a lot of ocelots on postings.
Seriously? God, they smell so gross. Oh, their spray is essentially water resistant. So we were just down at another facility, and we hadn't gotten to the ocelots, and I go, oh, they have ocelots. Like, you could smell them from around the corner. So I find that fascinating. I totally interrupted your question, though. Sorry.
No, I was just building off of the previous question of, like, do you see, like, ebbs and flows and, like, oh, now everyone must be getting rid of their ocelots that they bought last year. Do you see that sort of ebb and flow with the pop culture of, like, certain animals being in vogue, if you will?
I can't speak specifically to that. I'm not quite sure. I think what we've seen with an increase of servals is part of that was from a breeding facility, but people are thinking, oh, that's an okay pet, an exotic pet. What we've heard of a lot of, and I've gotten even calls at the rescue of, are Savannah cats. And Savannah cats are the cross between a serval and a domestic cat. And people are finding out, oh, yeah, I probably shouldn't have that in my house either. So I can't speak specifically to that. I don't know. I think what we have seen with, as far as social media goes, I think a lot of organizations, and I realize this isn't quite your question, but a lot of social media platforms like Tinder, for one, has said, we're going to remove your picture if you have a selfie with a tiger. You're like, well done, Tinder. Well done. So I think we're seeing a little bit of that as people understand what this means and what it's like. I can't speak to the ebb and flow of various things. I think in our world, it's we could get a call tomorrow for 10 tigers, and we could get a call tomorrow for probably not 10 ocelots, but we would love some binturongs, that's for sure, which is a crazy animal from Southeast Asia that's amazing and smells like Fritos. But like stale Fritos, not like a good fresh bag of Fritos. Binturong, B-I-N. Let's see if I can spell. T-U-R-O-N-G. They're also known as bear cats. They're not related to bears or cats. And I see my cue out of the corner of my eye. So thank you so much for having me. I hope you learned something. If anybody would be willing, it would give us great pleasure if somebody took a safe selfie in front of our awesome safe selfie backdrop there. And if you'd be willing for us to potentially post it as you're a fantastic person, please let us know, because we'd also love to do that. And if you have other questions, let me know. I'm gonna turn this off though.
One more round of applause for Katie. Thank you so much. So, of course, between my defiant introduction and the the subsequent hour, President Price from Duke has now sent a missive about all of the things that Duke will no longer be doing until further notice. It's still not entirely clear to me if this counts, but stay tuned. So I'm hoping we can have a return to normality sooner rather than later. Fingers crossed. Thank you for coming.